Berlin Heights man says he saw a UFO.
Well, if there's like anything, it's rotating.
For decades, eyewitnesses were mocked for claiming they saw something not of this world.
I just saw this large head hovering over top of me. And I started to realize that the head that I saw wasn't necessarily humanoid looking.
The government denied everything, and skeptics called them crazy. But when a group of pilots captured undeniable footage on camera, the laughter stopped.
We have no idea that for 2 weeks, the 2 weeks we've been at sea, they've been tracking these things coming out of the sky. And when I talked to the Princeton controller, he's like up to about a dozen of them.
What they filmed was so precise, so intelligent, it forced the military to respond, fast. These are the moments that made the world realize the truth might have been flying right above us all along. The Ohio Sphere and the military jets. When Ohio biker Rafael Torres set out for a calm afternoon ride, he expected nothing more exciting than the rumble of his Harley and the scent of pine trees. But in one life-altering moment, his relaxing ride turned into a real-life episode of The X-Files. As he rode down a long stretch of open road, Rafael noticed a perfectly round, jet-black sphere hovering above the tree line. It was so smooth and so steady that for a moment, Rafael thought it might be a reflection or a trick of the eyes. But when he stopped his bike and took off his helmet, the truth hit him. This thing was moving, and it was moving deliberately. It made no noise. It didn't shimmer, wobble, or reflect sunlight. It just glided, like it was alive but mechanical at the same time. Then, out of nowhere, the peaceful silence shattered. A deep roar thundered across the valley. Rafael spun around and saw two military jets chasing the sphere at high speed. He quickly pulled out his phone and started filming. The video shows the jets streaking toward the object, with their engines echoing so loudly it appeared to shake the camera. The sphere didn't eke. It just floated forward, steady as ever, while the jets swerved and looped as if trying to box it in. Then something jaw-dropping happened. The sphere suddenly accelerated, shooting straight upward faster than any plane could follow. The jet climbed, tried to match its path, and then veered off, completely outpaced. Within seconds, the object vanished into the sky. The internet exploded with shock when Rafael uploaded the clip. At first, skeptics flooded the comments. It's a balloon, it's CGI, it's a drone. But aviation experts quickly noticed the jets in the background were real US F-16S, flying a tactical pursuit pattern. That wasn't a YouTube prank, it was a military chase. A few days later, something even stranger happened. Locals reported hearing sonic booms over the same area that evening. Then, radio recordings leaked online suggesting the Air National Guard had scrambled jets in response to an unidentified aerial anomaly. The Pentagon refused to comment, of course. For Rafael, it was both thrilling and chilling. "I saw the government chasing something they couldn't catch," he said. If that doesn't make you wonder what's out there, nothing will. The hovering metallic orb in Yumbo, Colombia. In the warm farmland outside Yumbo, Colombia, farmer Jorge Mendoza thought it was going to be just another sunny afternoon checking his crops. That was until he spotted a shiny metallic sphere hovering silently over his fields like it owned the place. At first, he assumed it was a drone. Yumbo has plenty of factories and industrial zones nearby, so strange flying gadgets aren't unheard of. But this one didn't behave like anything man-made. It wasn't spinning or blinking or buzzing. It floated calmly, steadily, and eerily still, like it was thinking out its next move. Jorge pulled out his phone and started recording. In the video, you can see the silver sphere glistening as sunlight bounces off it, and occasionally tilting as if scanning the land below. Then, just when he thought it couldn't get any weirder, the sphere made a slow 360-degree rotation and began to rise. Jorge filmed it for almost an hour. It never wobbled, it never drifted with the wind, and it never emitted any kind of exhaust or hum. Then, as casually as it arrived, it shot upward into the clouds and vanished from sight. Days later, Jorge's video went viral. Scientists, engineers, and drone enthusiasts all tried to explain it, but no one could. The speed, the stability, and the lack of noise didn't match any known drone or aircraft. Even stranger, nearby residents came forward saying they'd seen similar orbs days earlier hovering near power lines and over industrial buildings. One of the creepiest details Jorge shared later was how the sphere made him feel. It was like being watched, he said, not by a camera but by something alive. Whatever that orb was, it left the people of Yumbo and half the internet wondering who or what had been paying a visit. Two glowing orbs that fused midair in Asheville, North Carolina. One evening in Asheville, North Carolina, dozens of locals found themselves pointing their phones at two brilliant orbs floating high above the Blue Ridge Mountains. They glowed like mini-suns. The orbs hovered in place for several minutes. Then, slowly, the two orbs began to drift toward each other. People gasped, assuming they might collide, but instead of crashing, they began to spin around one another in a slow, mesmerizing circle like they were dancing. Then suddenly they fused into one giant sphere that flashed with blinding light and then vanished completely. No explosion, no sound, just instant disappearance. Witnesses later described it as the most beautiful and terrifying thing they'd ever seen. Videos flooded social media within hours, and the comments were split. Half screamed aliens, and the other half said, camera glitch. But everyone agreed on one thing. Whatever happened, it didn't behave like anything from this planet. Local authorities dismissed the reports as atmospheric phenomena, but several witnesses pointed out that both orbs were clearly visible through clouds. Amateur astronomers even checked for meteor activity that night, but none was reported. The footage quickly gained thousands of views, earning Asheville an unexpected spot in UFO folklore. To this day, no one has been able to explain how two glowing spheres could merge mid-air and vanish without a trace. But for the people who saw it, it wasn't a myth. It was a memory burned into their eyes forever. The giant black orb over Adelanto, California. On August 4, 2020, California contractor Andy Segoya was driving near El Mirage Airfield, not far from the Mojave Desert, when he spotted something that made him slam on the brakes. Hanging high in the sky above the dry landscape was a massive, perfectly round black orb. It wasn't shiny, it wasn't moving. It just hovered there like a floating shadow. Andy, who wasn't exactly the UFO type, immediately pulled over, grabbed his phone, and started filming. The orb looked small on camera, but based on its altitude, he estimated it had to be at least 8 feet wide. He stood there for several minutes waiting for it to move or make a sound, but nothing happened. Then suddenly it began to drift, not with the wind, but diagonally against the breeze. Andy said it felt like the object was observing him. Later, when he uploaded the video, people quickly noticed the location. It was just a few miles from a site linked to classified military testing. That sparked two camps: those who swore it was experimental tech, and those who believed Andy had witnessed something not of this world. The spinning, flashing UFO over Houston, Texas. It was the early hours of November 1st, 2013, and most of Houston was asleep when flashes of light began pouring through people's windows. At first, residents thought it was lightning, but there wasn't a single cloud in the sky. What they saw instead was something straight out of a sci-fi blockbuster. A glowing, spinning object hanging silently above the city. It wasn't just glowing, it was radiating. Multiple points on its surface pulsed in rhythmic flashes, creating an eerie, mechanical heartbeat of light. The craft seemed to rotate in perfect synchronization, sending beams of color across the skyline. People rushed outside. Some grabbed phones. Some just stood there, too stunned to move. The air was completely still. No wind, no thunder, no sound of engines. Then, without warning, a narrow beam of pure white light shot down from the object and hit the ground. A few seconds later, the light moved. Then it stopped. Then it moved again. It was as if the UFO was searching for something or someone. Several police units responded to frantic 911 calls. Officers described seeing a rotating aerial object with luminous intensity inconsistent with aircraft lighting. One patrol officer reportedly said over the radio, "Whatever that is, it's not from here." The craft continued to hover for nearly 10 minutes. Then in one blinding flash it vanished. No sound, no vapor trail, no sign it was ever there. Video clips from several neighborhoods were soon stitched together online. The results showed the same thing from multiple angles: a structured, glowing craft spinning above Houston's skyline. You'd think such footage would dominate the news, but not a single major outlet covered it. Weeks later, a few weather experts tried to explain it as a reflection of ground lights from a high-altitude cloud layer. But that didn't fit. The night was crystal clear. Others suggested a drone show or an LED advertising balloon. But no company ever claimed responsibility. The strangest twist came when a Freedom of Information request revealed that the FAA had logged anomalous light reports that night, but those records were sealed after a federal review. People in Houston still talk about it, not as a rumor, but as the night their city played host to something that left even the police staring up in silent awe. The pyramid hovering fleet over Giza, Egypt. Tourists visit the pyramids of Giza expecting to see ancient wonders, not futuristic ones. But in April 2016, dozens of visitors found themselves witnessing a scene that felt like ancient history meeting science fiction. It began with a low, steady hum, like distant thunder. People stopped mid-tour and looked up. From behind the clouds, several glowing objects began descending. They weren't planes or helicopters. They were symmetrical, metallic-looking, and completely silent. The largest hovered right over the Great Pyramid, tilting slightly, as if studying it. Smaller ones circled nearby, maintaining perfect formation. Tourists scrambled for their phones and began filming from multiple angles. The clips show the craft slowly rotating, reflecting the sun in odd patterns and staying absolutely still in between movements. The entire scene lasted about 10 minutes, yet no one heard a single sound from the objects. When the videos hit social media, people around the world lost their minds. UFOs returning to the pyramids became an instant headline. Theories went wild, from ancient alien connections to secret military scanning missions. Egyptian authorities, however, were not amused. Within hours, several videos vanished from online platforms, and the government declined to comment. Locals later said plainclothes officers visited hotels near Giza and asked tourists to hand over footage. That, of course, only fueled more conspiracy talk. If the footage was fake, why the rush to suppress it? And if it was real, what were those pyramid-shaped doing over the oldest monuments on Earth? To this day, those who witnessed the incident in person describe it as humbling, terrifying, and strangely emotional. "It was like they were home," one tourist said quietly, "like they were checking on something they left behind." The Buga, Columbia sphere with strange properties. For several weeks, residents of Buga, Columbia, had been whispering about a metallic orb that appeared in the sky almost every evening. It would hover over the city, gleam in the sunlight, and then vanish without a trace. Most people dismissed it as some high-tech drone project. But then everything changed when one local man claimed he found it crashed in a forest outside town. The man filmed his discovery with shaky hands. In the video, the sphere appears to be about the size of a basketball, smooth but covered in faint circuit-like lines. It didn't look damaged, just asleep. Scientists and journalists soon arrived, and that's when things got really weird. During tests, they noticed the sphere didn't heat up when exposed to open flame. It stayed cool to the touch no matter how much heat they applied. Then, when they placed it on a scale and rotated it, the weight changed. Lighter in some positions and heavier in others. The composition didn't match any known metal on record. Even advanced aerospace alloys failed to produce the same results when replicated. Some speculated it might be a surveillance device, but the design was too advanced and the material too exotic. Online, theories exploded. Was it alien tech, a lost military experiment, or some bizarre natural phenomenon? The Colombian government never claimed it, and no company stepped forward. Eventually, the sphere disappeared from public view. It was reportedly taken by foreign researchers. No one knows where it is now. But in Buga, people still look up every night, wondering if the orb might come back for whatever mission it failed to finish. The glowing green objects over San Antonio. On the night of May 16, 2022, San Antonio residents thought they were witnessing a meteor shower. 3 bright green lights were streaking across the dark sky until they suddenly stopped. That's when people realized they weren't meteors at all. The 3 lights hovered perfectly still, glowing an otherworldly green that didn't flicker like fire or LED. They seemed alive. For several minutes, they hung there, aligned in a straight horizontal formation. Then, as if choreographed, they began to move. Not downward like falling debris, but sideways, slowly crossing the skyline while maintaining exact distance from one another. Dozens of videos hit social media within the hour. The footage shows the orbs moving smoothly, stopping abruptly, then darting forward again. Some viewers noticed the objects were climbing in altitude, not descending. After a few minutes, the 3 lights tilted upward and shot into the sky, vanishing in unison. Local astronomers ruled out meteors, and the military denied conducting any aerial exercises that night. The FAA logged no flights in that area, and weather conditions were perfectly clear. Theories spread fast. Some said it was a trio of experimental drones. Others claimed it was plasma energy or some new kind of propulsion test. But no known technology could explain their silent, synchronized ascent straight into orbit. When news stations ignored the story, conspiracy theorists pounced. "They're covering it up," one viral post read. "Those things were not supposed to be seen." Even today, people in San Antonio remember that eerie glow hanging over their city. And somewhere between science and the unexplained, those 3 green orbs left a permanent question in the Texas night sky. Who or what was flying above them that evening? The massive disk over Afghanistan and Pakistan. In November 2020, soldiers stationed somewhere between Afghanistan and Pakistan recorded something that looked like it had rolled straight out of a blockbuster. A disc-shaped object, easily hundreds of meters wide, floated through the clouds without making a sound. It didn't flash, it didn't roar, and it didn't radiate heat. It hovered with perfect stability, ignoring turbulence, as if obeying unknown laws of motion. Sensors couldn't detect it. Radar remained silent. Even military pilots struggled to comprehend it. Observers described an otherworldly calm, almost as if the disk absorbed surrounding sound. No known propulsion, wings, or exhaust appeared anywhere. Analysts speculated it could be experimental human technology, extraterrestrial, or some natural phenomenon beyond physics. The disk slowly shifted altitude, hovered, and vanished without warning. Pilots noted the eerie absence of contrails or wake turbulence. Experts debated endlessly, some joking about building copies, others remaining profoundly silent. The footage came from a U.S. Air Force thermal sensor, and even the experts couldn't find a heat signature. That means whatever it wasn't using any normal kind of engine. Some analysts joked that if it were ours, we'd be flying those instead of jets. Others didn't joke at all. Filmmaker Jeremy Corbell and journalist George Knapp confirmed they received the clip from military insiders who spent 2 years checking it. They called it the first officially verified disc ever caught by a defense sensor. And what about the Pentagon? They simply said, "We have nothing to offer on that." Case closed. The splashdown sphere USS Omaha incident. July 2019 began as a normal day for the crew of the USS Omaha. The ocean was calm, the sky was clear, and the radar screens showed nothing unusual. Then, out of nowhere, a dark sphere appeared and started moving across the radar faster than anything anyone had ever seen. It zipped, darted, and stopped, as if it knew it was being watched. Someone grabbed an infrared camera and hit record, unknowingly creating one of the most talked about pieces of Navy footage ever. The sphere floated through the clouds like it was sightseeing. It showed no signs of propulsion, no contrails, and no heat. Crew members compared it to a meteor that suddenly decided to take up ballet. The weirdest part came when the orb decided to dive into the ocean. Everyone expected a huge splash, maybe a column of steam or some kind of sonic boom. Instead, it entered the water like it had been politely invited. There was no splash, no bubbles, not even a ripple. The sailors stood there, stunned, wondering if they had just seen the world's smoothest submarine launch. Some reported a strange pressure in the air and a sense of stillness that made their skin crawl. When the Pentagon later confirmed the video was real, the internet exploded. UFO fans celebrated while skeptics tried to find logical explanations that never quite added up. Drones, plasma, secret projects, aliens, every theory found a home. To this day, the ocean has not revealed what swallowed that mysterious sphere, and the sailors still talk about it as the strangest, quietest crash landing ever recorded. The missile-proof orb off Yemen. October 2024 gave us something straight out of a sci-fi movie. A U.S. Reaper drone flying over Yemen caught sight of a glowing metallic orb that did not behave like any drone, plane, or balloon. The operator decided to take no chances and fired a Hellfire missile. The crew watched the screen as the missile streaked toward the orb. What happened next looked impossible. The missile hit the orb and literally bounced off. No explosion, no smoke, no damage. Just a silent game of cosmic dodgeball. The orb hung there for a moment, glowing faintly as if thinking about what just happened. Then it drifted away calmly like it had better things to do. The drone's sensors went wild trying to make sense of the data. The object produced no heat signature and no radar reflection. Engineers later said it behaved as if made of something beyond known materials. Some theorized invisible energy shields. Others talked about gravitational warping, and a few brave souls whispered the word alien. When footage of the encounter surfaced in a House Oversight hearing, jaws dropped. Congressman Eric Burleson presented the video while former Pentagon investigator Luis Elizondo nearly fell out of his chair. He said, "We've never seen a Hellfire missile hit a target and bounce off." The Pentagon refused to comment, which in UFO language is pretty much the same as saying, "We have no idea what that was." The military quietly archived the case while scientists and skeptics argued over the footage like kids fighting over the last slice of pizza. The orb, as far as anyone knows, is still out there somewhere, possibly laughing at missiles. The Colombian pilot encounter Jorge A. Arteaga. Commercial pilot Jorge Arteaga was having an ordinary flight over Colombia when his day took a wild turn. While cruising at altitude, he saw a perfect silver disc hovering ahead of his plane. It hung there in the sunlight, gleaming like a chrome coin in the sky. At first, he thought it might be another plane or a strange reflection, but it stayed perfectly still and did not match anything on the radar. Jorge did what any sensible pilot would do in such a situation. He took out his phone and started filming while mumbling a mix of prayers and polite disbelief. His co-pilot watched too, equally mesmerized. The object suddenly shot toward their aircraft faster than they could react and zipped past the windshield so quickly that it seemed to vanish. The plane's instruments flickered, and there was a faint static in their headsets. Then everything went back to normal as if nothing had happened. When Jorge uploaded the footage, the internet nearly melted down. Analysts pointed out that the object moved without acceleration blur and stopped faster than any known craft could. Some suggested experimental military technology, while others said it was far too advanced even for that. Experts ran simulations and found no explanation that fit. The video earned the nickname, "the clearest UFO video ever." Jorge later said, "It came from nowhere and it left the same way." His calm voice and obvious sincerity turned him into an unlikely legend in UFO circles. The disc remains unidentified, and some pilots now joke that Colombia has better UFO sightings than tourist attractions. The Great Falls UFO film, Nick Mariana. In 1950, baseball manager Nick Mariana just wanted a quiet afternoon at the ballpark in Great Falls, Montana. The sun was bright, the air was still, and then he saw two shiny discs hovering in the sky. They moved with purpose, twirling like coins tossed in slow motion. His secretary saw them too, which meant he was not losing his mind. Nick grabbed his trusty 16mm movie camera and started filming, probably breaking a record for fastest cameraman in history. For 16 seconds, he captured two metallic objects performing aerial stunts no jet could manage. They stopped, turned, and accelerated silently. The film later went to the Air Force for analysis and came back missing 35 frames. Those missing frames supposedly showed the discs rotating. Officials called them reflections from jets, which was the 1950 version of saying, "We have no idea, but we're not admitting that." Over time, researchers and film experts studied every frame. They noticed depth changes, light angles, and shadow movements that ruled out reflections. The footage aged like fine wine, becoming one of the most famous UFO films ever made. Historians now call it a cultural turning point because it helped start the modern fascination with UFOs. Some say the missing frames were an innocent accident. Others think they were deliberately removed to hide evidence of something beyond human understanding. Either way, Nick Mariana accidentally became the first person to film what might have been a genuine extraterrestrial air show. The Puerto Rico UAP splitting and submerging objects. April 2013 brought one of the strangest UFO videos ever caught on thermal cameras. A U.S. Customs and Border Protection plane was on patrol near Aguadilla, Puerto Rico, when the crew spotted a glowing orb zipping across the runway. The object moved like it had somewhere very important to be. It shot out toward the ocean, flew over the water, and then did something that made everyone's brain hurt. It plunged straight into the sea without slowing down or making a single splash. Everyone thought that was the end of it, but a few seconds later it came back out of the water, cool as ever, and then split into two identical orbs. Both pieces continued flying in perfect formation, matching speed and direction like they shared the same mind. The thermal camera showed no heat, no propulsion, and no sign of turbulence. It was as if the laws of physics had decided to take a coffee break. Experts later examined the footage for years. They found no signs of editing or natural explanation. Some said it might be a secret drone, but no known drone could move underwater like that. Others thought it could be some kind of gravitational trick or a machine capable of controlling inertia. To this day, the Puerto Rico incident remains one of the most puzzling pieces of UAP evidence ever recorded. It has been studied in conferences, featured in documentaries, and discussed by physicists who usually roll their eyes at UFOs. Even the skeptics admit this one is hard to explain. The Wales Police Helicopter UFO. Finally, a British entry. In September 2016, a police helicopter crew patrolling over the Bristol Channel got a surprise that made their shift way more exciting. The crew spotted a glowing object zipping through the sky on their thermal camera. To their naked eyes, there was absolutely nothing there. The object was invisible in normal light, but showed up clear and bright on thermal imaging. It moved smoothly against the wind at over 100 miles an hour. The pilots tried to follow it, banking, turning, and climbing, but the mysterious object kept pace effortlessly. It moved with the precision of something under intelligent control. There was no heat signature, no visible exhaust, and no radar reading. The air around it shimmered slightly as if it bent light in strange ways. The crew could only stare in disbelief while trying to capture as much footage as possible. When the recording was released, it caused a stir among researchers and the public. Retired officer Gary Heseltine called it one of the most credible UFO sightings in British history. Scientists offered every explanation they could think of, including drones, atmospheric distortions, and weird reflections. But nothing fit all the data. The object simply defied explanation. Even today, no one knows what the helicopter crew chased that night. It has become a favorite story among UFO enthusiasts, and some police officers now joke that the suspect literally disappeared into thin air. What do you think about these UFO sightings? Comment down below!